Welcome to Behind the Build. I am your host, Jonathan Jacobs, and today I have with me a gentleman who has been involved in design and construction for a better part of a quarter of a century, which makes it sound very long in that way, but really it's just 25 years.
Yeah, it's just like half my life. It's okay.
I have with me today Francesco DiSarra of Frank Franco Architects.
That's really formal. You could call me Frank.
Okay, will do.
Yeah.
Before going into the depths of today's episode, I want to bring forward Kaplan's Appliances, one of our strategic partners in sponsorship for the podcast. Kaplan's was founded in 1944. That is over 80 years of customer service for clients in and around Toronto, Canada. Think about that really for a minute. In 80 years, think about what's happened with appliances and how much they've changed, and now the importance of what customer service means to our clientele. Finding suitable products for a client, ensuring that we understand what they need for freezer space, fridge space. Where are they going to put their wine? Is it going to be panel ready? Is it not? Kaplan's has a wide array of products available for you and your clients. So if you're interested in learning more about them, I would be happy to connect you. You'll be able to gain product knowledge on Sub-Zero, Wolf, Miele, Genair, Fisher-Paykel. If you're looking for outdoor, well, it could be Lynx, it could be Kalamazoo. Feel free to email me, Jonathan, that's Jonathan, @waldenhomes.ca, and I would be happy to connect you with an in-store manager that will look to understand what your needs are to connect you with the right sales rep for your clients. And now, back to the episode. Frank, you and I connected, it is now I think about a year and a half ago, something along those lines. I connected, wanted to talk to you about Walden, wanted to talk to you about your practice, come across some of your designs. For those that are unfamiliar with Frank's designs, they are largely modern contemporary pieces that are, and I say pieces because they're art, that are designed on some pretty incredible lots for some exquisite clients. Yeah, right?
Yeah, we've been fortunate. We've got kind of a few hallmarks in there, a couple of feathers in my cap.
Yeah.
Which has been fun.
And Frank has not just taken on business in the form of architecture, but he's taken on way more. You will learn a lot today when you listen to this episode because while some people like to try to figure out what it is to just simply run a practice, Frank has done a lot more than just run a single practice.
I don't know if it's well, I've run one single practice, but there's been a lot of distractions along the way. A lot of different tangents.
Okay, so let's start as you do with everyone. Let's roll this whole thing back into the early stages of your life. And were you an artsy person? Were you an outdoors person? Were you into science? What did life look like for you when you were 5, 6 years old? And when did you really come into your own to establish that this is a pursuit that you wanted to follow?
Well, that's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, you only get one sentence. So
yeah,
go ahead and summarize your life in a sentence.
It's a work in progress there. But yeah, that's my life. I've always been involved in like the science and art and creating. And I think if I roll back the clock and say, when was what has the most impact in my life? I think that's a time I spent with my grandparents. And I could recall times when, every September, my grandfather would make wine, and there were these cases of wood that he would take apart. He would save the wood for other projects that he had. Mm-hmm. He was always in the garage tinkering, and I think that's the best term, is tinkering. And my job was to strip the nails and straighten them. Now, these nails are they're the simple straight nails. They're really hard to hold, and they're about 1.25 inches long. So he gave me a little hammer, and I had to kind of straighten out the nails because he would use those nails in other projects. Mm-hmm. And that's my earliest recollection of kind of being involved in using tools or hardware to kind of get a job done. Mm-hmm. But he was always in the garage tinkering and just fixing things and repairing things. And I think that's where I kind of learned how to repurpose things and how to kind of take something that was, I think another example was he had these oil, like we used to buy oil, like cooking oil in these little tins. They were metal.
Mm-hmm.
And he would take the tins and split them open and rip them apart. And then he would kind of use the tins for other things like cladding. And he had this little
cladding.
Yeah, he had this little,
like a shingle.
Yeah, exactly like a shingle. So he had this little toolbox that was mounted to the fence of his garden, and it would have his little pruning shears and his little shovel in there. And it was made of wood. It was rotting. It was just plywood that he had again from another scrap project.
Yeah.
And he would take the Unico cans. I remember them Unico. They were dark green. And he wrapped the box and he did this little detailing. He meticulously bent the metal with the rudimentary tools that he had. And he built this cladding system for this little toolbox. And just one example, and it's not a unique story. Like I'm sure we all have, grandparents or elders that kind of repurpose things because they came from a time where new materials were difficult to come by and expensive. And he was from a war era. So you make do with what you had.
Yeah.
So I learned from him, and I spent a lot of time with him. I learned from him through observation how to kind of make use of things in different ways. And that has kind of stick with me through my life. In high school, I was very good in art. I was very creative in art. And I think that's a time in your career or your life where you're honing in and practicing skills as opposed to making statements. So you have to first learn how to paint before you can actually say something with your paintbrush.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like learning how to write. So, and then you apply to your university years, and the first thing you have to do is put a portfolio together so they accept you as one of these criteria in getting into school.
Before you skip forward to there, I'm just sorry, but on the topic of art, did you take shop as well?
Not in high school.
Okay.
Not in high school. Our school didn't have shop.
Okay.
But I was always, again, through the experience of tinkering, I was always kind of messing around at home. Like I don't know if you skateboarded as a kid.
Not well.
Yeah. Well, I built the launch ramp that, we built this ramp. I think it was like 14 or 15. We built this ramp that you would skate on, and my brother kind of decided to start at the top of the street, work his way down, broke his arm, launched. He was 10 feet in the air. I got blamed for it because I built the ramp. So
yeah, it's true. It was
blame always needs a home, and I had the shoulders.
The guy that decided to go down the street and jump off the ramp.
Yeah, no, that was not his fault. It was mine. But that's okay. It's fine. I got the blame. He had the broken arm. It's a good deal.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, I was always tinkering.
Yeah.
Always kind of building things. Always kind of like trying to. Whether it was building a go-kart or, a little more mechanically inclined.
Okay.
And then in high school, tinkering, my first car, you're always tinkering with the car, and I was kind of always taking things apart. And one of the things I always took apart was this toy. I think I went through 9 of them, and it's called I know the Italian name, it's called a trottola, which is it's a spinning top.
Okay.
And it was one of these things where you push the bar down.
What are you talking about? Yeah.
And it would spin.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I just could not understand how it would spin.
How the mechanism
because
would engage.
The arm was twisted, right? The arm was twisted,
Yeah.
and it was forced through a pinhole, and it would force the toy to spin.
Yeah.
I took apart like 9 of them before I was like, I don't know.
I'm convinced.
8. How does this thing work? And I promised my mom I would never take apart another one.
Yeah.
So I think she bought me one when I was 18 on my 18th birthday. And I think I still have it in the box. I promised I wouldn't take it apart. I figured it out by then. So it was always kind of disassembling things and learning how to put them back together.
Right.
So that's kind of my forte.
Yeah. And then you were saying, before I really interrupted, you were talking about how go to university and start to put together a portfolio. What that would look like. Yeah.
Like, so, is it good enough? It's very similar because my son is actually went into architecture too. And he went through the same. Yeah. So he went in through the same kind of anxious moment in his life where he's putting together this portfolio. And it's kind of like putting your life out there, right? Say, this is what I've done. Yeah. And you're always questioning, is it good enough? Is it not good enough? And one of the things I sat down with him, we looked at it, I go, put the work aside. You have to be able to present this in a very clear way. And if you could present it in a clear way, you could communicate what it is that you have done. So that was fun. With that was a fun experience with him. But in my, like, going back to me and university, it was like, you know, you go through the process, you apply to the 3 schools that are, you know, that you know of, because I didn't know what school I wanted to go to. Like, aside from the tinkering with my grandfather and the artwork that we did in high school, I didn't know much about the industry. And I was also fortunate enough that my dad was general manager of a sewer and water main company. So I was very familiar with having like technical drawings around us and seeing stuff like he was estimating things, and I would kind of not really help him. I thought I was helping him. I think he was teaching me how to read those drawings more than helping him, you know, and he would ask me, what's the invert of the pipe on grid line, whatever. First question out of my mouth, what's an invert? So like, I remember that. And he went into his own little Italian thing. What do you mean you don't know what an invert is? Like, okay, I don't know what an invert is. Teach me. So, you know, and it's always been in my acumen to be kind of involved in construction or see the construction around us. And it's just part of our family.
Okay.
So, you know, when it came down to choosing a career, it's like, well, you know, am I going into engineering, or, you know, it's a little dry from what I thought. I'm not saying it is, and think there's brilliant engineers out there. I'm not suggesting that what they do is by any means boring.
Yeah, but it's what you knew in your teenage years.
Yeah, but it's what I knew. And I said, I wanted to be more on the creative side of things. And my dad suggested maybe you should go look at architecture. And then I remember my godmother was doing a house, and I kind of saw the drawings, and all of a sudden this light in me says, yeah, that looks cool. I could get to create these things that get built, and that sounds like a lot of fun.
Right.
So, and off you apply to school.
So you go. Where did you go to school?
I got accepted at Carleton.
Yeah.
And I ended up going there. And it was the right school for me, I think. More tactile, a lot more kind of working with your hands. I was always in the shop there. So that tinkering kind of made its way to kind of my post-secondary education. So it was always kind of, you know, whether I was welding and doing other things there. I remember one studio professor kind of like in one of our crits, he was like, oh, this part of the building belonged, he ripped off my model. You got to put it over here. And on the next crit, I built the same model I had presented originally, but I built it out of metal and I welded it all. And I invited him to try and rip it apart. So I said, you can rip it apart. That's what I want to build. So it was fun. That was a little, I enjoyed myself there. I really did. At the time I didn't. It was a bit disorienting for me. You know, school was, my family is very practical. I looked at architecture from a very pragmatic position. You know, it's good. We got to put doors, we got to get windows, got to get in here. Needs a bedroom or, you know, whatever the building is. We need these functions need to fit in it. And the first years of school or post-secondary was discussing, you know, I don't know. I really didn't understand what they were discussing. Like, it was I didn't quite get it. And it took a little while.
Of theory.
Yeah, it took a little while to understand that they were trying to ingrain meaning or significance into their structure. And that took a while for me to digest and understand. Then I understood it, and I understood why we should be kind of a little more influenced by the ideas, because that furthers our kind of creative prowess, right? So that was important for me to kind of digest. And I got lost in it for the first like little while, but I figured it out.
And had you grown up in Toronto prior to going to Carleton?
Yeah. So that was another disorienting factor.
I was going to ask, was that contributing to this as well? Now you didn't have family around and you're out on your own. And
yeah, going from a very tight family to being totally on your own. I remember the first semester was really kind of disorienting. But you know, you figured it out, and it was cold. I thought it was cold. Like, I remember that, like, it was cold. And it snowed a lot. And it was like, I just, you know, I remember them saying, oh, it snowed. I remember talking on the phone. Yeah, it snowed here. We have 2 centimeters and we have 20. It was like, it was crazy. So it was learning. And then, but I was always comfortable being outside.
Right.
So I gravitated to, you know, being kind of outdoors, learned how to snowboard and learned how to do a bunch of things in Ottawa, which is, I think, a fairly active city.
Yeah.
So.
And was it a 4-year program?
It was a 5-year program.
5-year program. Okay.
5-year program. Yeah.
That's, some of them are 4 and some of them are 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then, so you finished at Carleton, and from there, what did it look like when you were looking for your first position? Did you have a co-op, or did you go straight into the field? Like,
no, we had no co-op. I took a job. I volunteered for a job because I said I just got to put something on my resume, and you're always worth more with something on your resume than not. So I just volunteered a firm, and I did some work there. And
in Ottawa, or was it back?
It was back in Toronto.
Back in Toronto. Okay.
Back in Toronto. And then I ended up working for Lauren Rose for a little while. And we're doing hand drawings. I was doing pen on Mylar. And that's, CAD wasn't really, it was just emerging.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was fun. That I learned, he taught me some things which were important. I wasn't there for very long, but he taught me a few things which were kind of great. And then I jumped around from a few offices here and there, and I ended up at a high-rise office doing high-rise, and I got canned from that because I was day trading. I deserved that. I really did.
I just watched you as your head kind of turned down. Yeah, I own that.
Yeah, that was mine. Yeah. That was all on me. Well, in defense, and I'm going to defend it because I should. And they kept changing the floor-to-floor heights in like 5 mils. And I was responsible for drawing the emergency staircase, or the staircase between these floor heights. So I had to kind of draw them all over again every single time they changed the floor height. So I was just annoyed. So I said, I gotta
go make some more money.
There's going to be a better way to make some money here. And I wasn't making a lot of money, so it wasn't hard to make that money. So okay, I'll trade some stocks. But you're not growing up until you lose money in the stock market. So I lost money in the stock market, and I grew up, and that was it.
And lost the gig. You're like, all right, now I really got to figure it out. I got to buckle down.
And I was fortunate enough to get hired by, he's since passed, Renzo Pallone, a great guy. He hired me on a part-time basis because at the same time I had this kind of opportunity to build a house. And some guy told me, I got this house. You think you could build it for me? He had the drawings already. So it wasn't kind of like, I wasn't ready to design a house yet, to be totally honest. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll build it. And we came up to a deal, and I'm going to tell you how much he paid me because I think it's actually hilarious. We negotiated a deal to build a house for me to project manage it.
Can I guess?
Yeah, go for it. Let's see what you got.
$22,000.
$16,000.
I was gonna say 15, and I was like, no, it's gonna be
no. I don't do that anymore. Anybody listening, I don't do that anymore. So those deals are gone.
$16,000 to build a house.
Yeah, but that was half my salary for the year. Yeah. So I said, okay, sure, I'll do this for 6 months, and I'll learn a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
And I did. I did that for 6 months. I built that house. It took me 7 months. And that turned into another house. And it turned into designing another house and designing it. So it started to, you know how that goes, right? You're on site. The guy stops at the end of the driveway. Who's building this house? Give me your card. I didn't have cards. I gave him my number. I think
Here's my QR code.
Yeah. There was no QR codes. But it was kind of like, it was exciting. And that segued into a design build company.
Right.
So we were designing and building. At this point here, I'd stepped away from architecture for a little while.
Okay.
So we're doing design and construction. And then I teamed up with my brother for a period of time. We ran a construction company, doing, again, residential amongst some other interior projects, and always in the design build. So I was doing design, I was doing construction, and it started getting hectic. We had 4 guys in the field actually physically doing construction, and you learn as a construction company that when something goes wrong, or you break something, or it was a warranty claim or something, then it's all on you. No one's coming to save you. So you have to kind of fix those things. And it's not something that I went and worked for a construction company and then started doing it. It was baptism by fire the whole way, everything we did. And the only reason why we got jobs is because we didn't know what we were doing, really. But we weren't afraid. At the end of the day, I wasn't afraid of failure because I knew whatever I said I was going to do and get it done. So I wasn't afraid of that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we would make money or not, that was a big question mark. That was secondary. But as long as, we were having fun.
No. Who needs money?
Yeah, exactly.
It's only there to be lost in the stock market.
I just got married. We just lost it in the stock market anyway, so who cares? But the projects got a little bigger.
And were you designing, because you said you were doing design build, so were you designing at the same time as the architecture interiors as well?
Yeah, we were doing everything. We were doing everything. We were designing what we were building. We were operating I was operating with a BCIN number.
Yeah.
And that was the time when BCIN came in, and I said, listen, I'm going to go through all this licensing stuff and get, with the OAA and everything. And for what? And like my projects I'm doing are very small in nature, single family dwellings. And, why go through all that when I could go this path and it's a lot easier. But the project started getting bigger. And I had, again, at this point here, I had like 3 design staff, 5 field staff, and me and my brother, an accounting person. So it's becoming a real organization at this point. So, and the project started getting bigger, and I said, this is not going to work. I need to kind of figure out how I'm going to deal with this. And I think it's time I actually go back and get my license. So I had to kind of partition the business, go back, finish some hours, get kind of organized in that regard, write my exams. And then, that was 13 years ago. And that's when we started doing the larger projects that we're doing now.
And now you're not doing design build anymore, or are you?
No. Well, that design. So my brother and I kind of parted ways. That kind of ran its course. I went to school for architecture. I wanted to focus on architecture. He was more on the construction side of things. So we made a clear decision that, I'm going to go my way. He went his way. And that's worked out great. Like it's for both of us. So I think that decision was clear.
And when you say that you were looking at projects and they started to get bigger, so what were some of the initial projects looking like? Like when that first custom home, was it square footage wise? What can you guesstimate?
I think it was like 1,800 square feet.
Okay.
New build, new construction. It was under 2,000.
Okay.
It was in that range.
And now, and some of the larger scale projects
we're building 15,000, 20,000. Sorry, not quite 20. 16,000 is our biggest.
Okay. And that's all above grade, or is that are you?
I'm including total built area.
Okay.
Yeah, total built area. So some of the one larger bungalow we have right now, or the ones we've done, are about 7,000 above grade. Some of they're about. I think the above grade are hovering about 8,000.
Yeah, see, and I asked that question because this is like one of the biggest shades of gray in the industry as a whole, because some people will count square footage based on what's allowable through your zoning.
Yeah.
And then others will count it based on what you consider to be buildable, usable space.
For me,
yeah,
we're building it, right?
Yeah.
It's square footage.
Yeah, there's material.
Yeah. It's not like that's free. Okay. Yeah. It's
a garage.
It's a garage.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's heated. It's like
yeah, there could be radiant in the ground.
Yeah. And we've been blessed with doing some very unique projects like in that space.
Yeah.
And those types of homes are a little tricky from a design standpoint, because most buildings we'll stick in the residential sector right now, but you get into an in-city lot and you're confined. You have limitations from the perspective of the land.
Yep.
But when you're dealing on acreage and you want to build a house and your client says, make living room's too small, and you could just draw a bubble. You could just keep drawing bubbles. And it becomes challenging for a designer, because now they are set free. So how, a lot of designers work best when they have obstacles in their way and are able to overcome those obstacles. Yep. And there's an intelligence and a smartness in there to kind of be able to do that. But then when you take those obstacles away, you have to be, you're kind of floating out there in the ocean. You have to really kind of put a case forward, because now you get back to those ideas that were so disorienting for me at the beginning in school. What's the concept here? What are we trying to do here? What's the message we're trying to convey?
Yeah. Well, it's entrepreneurship, right?
And how do we negotiate the site? How do we negotiate getting in and out of this building? that makes sense. And all those experiences from, back in my grandfather tinkering in the garage, dealing with existing things, come back full circle. And really kind of, how do I deal with this existing lot? How do I deal with this existing building? It really comes back when you're doing renovations. How do you deal with this? So really understanding how you put forward ideas that are not only smart, intelligent, or kind of like disciplined from a design perspective, because you have to be disciplined and they have to be functional. They have to be, again, we'll go back to the doors, their windows. You got to get in, you got to get out. It's got to be practical. It's got to make sense. Mm-hmm. So it's not so much about drawing a bubble for a bigger room. It's like, okay, is this going to be idle space? Is this going to be used? Right? And you have to understand that client's unique use case. They entertain a lot. Okay, so the living room, there's more pressure on the living room being slightly oversized for day-to-day use, but well sized, correctly sized for when they have their events and parties. Right. Yeah. But the kitchen can't be so overwhelming because the kitchen's used daily. So you have to kind of plan for your daily use kitchen and then your back kitchen or your entertaining kitchen. And it's not that they're doing the cooking, it's that they have, chefs come in or catering companies come in to do that. So you have to give them access to those spaces.
Right.
So it's a different kind of level of programming that you have to kind of go through.
Yeah. I had made that comment before about the concept of it being something to do with entrepreneurship. And I say because you said that people are generally really good at solving a problem when the problem presents itself, but you go and you create that space, that vastness. And now what can you create within it that's going to be significant and meaningful?
Yeah.
And as an entrepreneur, there is no format for what your business can look like, how you scale your business, how you address clients, software, what your days look like, all of that stuff. A lot of people want to go work for someone because creating that structure is really hard. It's really hard.
There's no book you can read to say, here, just do this. And it's a blueprint for success. Success is perseverance.
Yeah.
Even when it looks futile, you just gotta, and success is going through a series of failures. And
getting fired from your job while you're day trading.
Yeah. That was one of them. Yeah, I don't like talking about it, but it's true.
But these are the types of experiences that people go through. It's some variety, okay, in some way. Like I was fired from a job. I was fired from a job for reasons that still don't entirely make sense to me, but I was. And the benefit of that firing was what landed me where I am now.
Yeah, your life is an accumulation of experience.
That's completely.
And it's what you make of it, right?
Yeah.
Where you go with it.
Yeah.
And part of what we've done, like when I was back in the construction space and doing all that, I actually started up a millwork company too. And in 2020, when COVID set in, is like there was this kind of air of unknown uncertainty and what's going to happen here. Mm-hmm. And the lease was due. And I said, okay, let's unplug this and undo this. And that was a tough decision because there was some investment in that. I think we had 6,000 square feet. I had another 4 guys working in there, and it was a struggling business. It's hard to get a business off the ground like that, especially manufacturing.
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult. In hindsight, I would have bought an operation that was already going.
Right.
And just added to it as opposed to starting it fresh.
Right.
And I think that was the Achilles heel on that one. But it's recognizing that moment in time where you have to say, okay, this isn't working. And it's a bitter pill to accept.
Well, but it also sounds like, you know that if you were to want to go ahead with that type of venture at this stage, now you know the right time to invest.
No, I really took, at the end of that, I really stepped back and I looked at it and I said, there's no mill workers driving Ferraris. So it's a business that's a tough business to run.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting that you don't make money. I'm just saying it's a tough business.
Yeah.
You got to keep that wheel. You got to keep that wheel churning. So it's a full-time business. And it was conflicting with kind of my aspirations for architecture, but it was complementary at the same time.
Right.
That was the hard part to let go of because I had the access to mock-ups, like overnight, make this mock-up for me.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is what led to the company not performing well because I was always looking to do something creatively with it, as opposed to focusing on, getting this out,
Right.
getting this done.
Right. And so how has the company evolved over these last, you say, design elements have maintained, but the build elements stopped? 12, 13 years now of just design, right?
It took like 3 years of wind down to get all the construction stuff out of the way.
Okay.
Really took that long because just there's legacy things and
Right.
kinds of.
So it's around 10 years now.
10 years where we're kind of just solely focused on architecture and Frank Franco.
And what does it look like from a staffing point of view?
We're a boutique office. We've been kind of really focused on doing unique projects.
Yeah.
We don't do a lot of projects on a yearly basis.
So what would that be? Like you're saying,
like if we do like 10 projects in a year, it's a really busy year.
Okay.
Really, really busy year.
Yeah.
But in those 10 projects, might be 2 major ones.
Okay.
And everything else falls in the scale beneath that.
Okay.
Major project being somewhere in the neighborhood of 8,000 to 10,000 square feet.
Okay.
We've recently just completed the clubhouse project, which is got some awards, and that was kind of fun. It's the first time we actually put forward kind of submissions to some of this stuff. We've got, again, like projects no one's ever heard of or seen. Yeah. And so I pulled them out and I said, where's this one? I did like 14 years ago. So
this is an appropriate time to do a shout out to your wife?
Yeah, she's the one that did it all. Because as an architect or a designer, whatever category, bucket you want to put me in. Yeah. I never thought of like promotion as something I had to do. I always kind of like, let me just do good work. I'll do the good work, and the newspapers will catch up. They'll call me.
Still waiting on those phone calls.
No one's called me. So, there's projects I've done that, that no one has seen, no one even knows about throughout my history, because and I've done some pretty unique stuff, I look at them and think I've been blessed with being able to say I've done career projects, like at least 9 of them. I've done 9 career projects, where I could say, I really cut my teeth on that one.
Right.
And then you finish. Little side note: you do these really intense projects, and then you fall off the cliff at the end of it. It's like there's nothing to catch you from in terms of keeping you busy.
I was going to say it's coming to an end.
Yeah, it's like you fall off the cliff, and there's these other little projects that are sitting there waiting for your attention, and you almost don't want to do them. Like it's like not that I do, it just you're off such a high.
Yes.
Of being really highly integrated with regard to the construction and the site, and there's a lot of questions and a lot of answers. It's this puzzle you created that now is built.
Yes.
And you look back and you go, wow, the 70% of the stuff is buried, and you guys don't understand all those decisions that went into that. It looks the way it looks because we constructed this, we constructed it digitally, we deconstructed it and built it again. And with a simpler, when a building looks really simple and sublime, oh my God, the thought that went into that, you don't want to know.
We're not going to do anything complicated here. It's just going to be a lot of clean lines.
Yeah, it's just straight. It's a box. It's straight. Yeah. I think there should be like an OAA award where every architect builds a shed, a set size, and it's gauged on a timeline, right? How square is it, first of all?
Yeah.
We'll start with that. And then we'll do a 2-year, a 3-year, and a 5-year and see how the performance is like. It's just a fun, I think when you build things or design things, you have to have that mindset about how is this going to age, and how constructible is it, and how, easy is it for everybody to kind of communicate, because you need buy-in. You need to have buy-in from everybody, whether it's just the forming, not the forming company, but the guy is actually doing the forming, right? They have to know what they're building. They can't operate in a igloo and just not be isolated from the process of design. They have to be invited in and say, we want to do this way, this way. You're building this way. You're making this cavity for this reveal. And it's important that this reveal lines up in the end with whatever's happening on the other side. And, once they understand that, once they have that buy-in, and you take the time to explain it. And I spend a lot of time on the construction site explaining this to everybody because it's vital, it's important, it's critical to the success of the design.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have that communication, that interaction with a site. And the construction side of us, our experience with that, I can speak that language quite easily. I think I'm more comfortable on the site.
Right. How do you source your clientele? Are they coming to you as a result of word of mouth, or how are they finding you? You're saying that you're not in newspapers.
No,
how
we're
are they finding you?
No, I think the projects we've done have commanded a certain amount of attention from a local, on a local standpoint.
Yeah.
And, because we are so present on site, that we catch them the old school way with regards to, hey, you're the guy that designed this, and I have a project. I want you to come in, or they inquire on our website. But that's traditionally how we've gone, and then word of mouth and clients recommending us going forward has been the key or the major ways of acquiring new projects. But it's kind of like it's a small little boutique firm that kind of just deals with these monsters. They're big. There's some of them big, and they're fun.
Yeah, and a lot of detailing.
Yeah, both express detailing and construction detailing.
Right.
But it's a lot of what it's like if you want to do a floor to ceiling window, from floor to ceiling. Sounds simple, right?
Oh, it is simple.
Yeah.
It doesn't take any thought. It just happens.
Yeah. Does the lift and the lift and slide door, does it sit on the deck, or we cut the deck back and we cut the joist down to get a more flush look? And what are we doing at the top? Because now you have no mullion exposed at the bottom. What are you doing at the top? You're going to recess it into the ceiling. So then what happens as you go around the building now? Now you made that decision in one location. What happens to the window that's sitting beside it or in the other elevation? Is you going to drop it at a different height? So you need to kind of make these decisions all the way through this. You have to consider the whole. You have to consider the detail and then the whole. And then what are the complications at each location?
Mm-hmm.
When you take a piece of glass and you put it above, like we did this at Clubhouse too. We take the glass and we go below the floor system and we go above the ceiling. And, why make that complication? Well, this house looks on the 18th hole of the National Golf Club of Canada. And when you're sitting in the bedroom, there's no glass. There's no frame. You don't see anything. You wake up to the birds in the trees. And silicone joint on the vertical. It looks like there's no window.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can hear the air and you hear the birds, then there would be no window. But there's a piece of glass there that we hid. So think about hiding a piece of glass.
It's
Easy.
Costs nothing.
Easy. And then there's an insulation detail at the bottom of that.
I was going to say to you haven't even gone to the art values yet.
No, there's an insulation detail at the bottom of that. Yeah. And then you have this problem where you're going below the floor system and you have no air currents. So you get condensation down there. So you got to kind of get a return air duct in that space to kind of move the air around.
Something linear.
Yeah. Something just to kind of move the air around. Yeah. Just as long as you move the air, you get rid of the condensation. But then how do you hide the blind too? And this, we're just talking one window.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a wall, but we're just talking one.
Well, and this is an entire conversation about trying to explain cost to people, and we do a lot of that at Wall.
Yeah.
Like we're explaining, why is this detail more expensive? Well, it's the detail you want, but here are all the reasons why. Yeah. Here are all the people involved to make that detail look like it's simple. And there's a cost to that.
And there's the art in making it look simple.
That's it. What does that art look like? Can we see some mock-ups?
Yeah.
Because that's something else you talked about when you had when you had the millwork companies, you do these mock-ups really quickly.
Yeah.
But when you're doing this and it's not your own company, you got to work with other people. There's a lot of communication required, a lot of lead times factored into these things. Working with the right trades.
Yeah. It all comes down to the trades you decide to work with, and the more competent trades you work with are the ones that are going to get closer to the realization you're expecting.
Yeah.
The trade-off is they're more expensive, and on larger projects like the ones we do, they're generally more expensive, but no one really makes a lot of money. They're more expensive just because they're more expensive to build, but no one's running away with sack of cash. They're putting in the work. They're putting in the work and
they're not showing up in G63
No,
AMGs.
no. Well, some of them might be, but
Some of the stone guys.
Some of the stone guys. The stone guys are all showing up in that stuff these days.
But definitely not the trim carpenters and steel installers. And, like that is not the case. Yeah. No. So you had said before that you have a certain number of staff. You talked about 3 or 4 people.
We're hovering between 3 and 4.
Right. And so what do they fulfill on the back end? Like, what are the roles of the staff and how they help with the business?
So there's me. I'm the principal architect.
Yeah.
I have an intern.
Yeah.
She's finishing up her hours actually.
Okay.
Technologist.
Yeah. And
then I have another architect that's been with us for several years. She's coming back on mat leave in the new year. So that's us as in a nutshell. We also have in the summer, we have a summer student usually and or a co-op student.
Okay.
And they kind of do our model building. So we actually do physical model building. We have again, as part of what we learned in the millwork business, we still have maintained our CNC machine. We still maintain, we have 3D printing, laser cutting. So I still like tinkering. My garage is full of toys. I like to tinker. And it allows us to express these ideas that we have in a more clear manner.
Right.
Going back to the portfolio for my son, if you have this great idea and you can't convey it, you cannot communicate it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really nice to actually show up at the job site with our model of our building and say, hey guys, this is what you're building. And, pull it. We could take our models apart and you could see the basement foundation work. You talk to the concrete guys, you're building this area here, but you got to pay attention. There's a suspended slab above you. And there's this condition and that condition. And when we do things, like both my intern are Eileen and Theo, they work full Revit. We build things full 3D, but we go to the extent when we prepare our construction documents that we look at the full assemblies and then we rip it apart. Okay. And again, it goes back to the whole idea of deconstructing the idea. And we issue precisely to the trade, here's your top of wall detail everywhere. And we color code it like IKEA. It's just like an IKEA drawing. Here's your reverse curb. Here's your step. Here's your elevations. And we go around the entire building and we show them precisely what has to happen in every location. And we explain why it has to happen that way so they can understand why.
Right.
And it's being able to have that flexibility or that capability and applying the technologies in different spots to be able to accommodate that, whether it's 3D printed or whether it's a laser cut or doing something, or we do mock-ups, we do little railing brackets, we mock them up and fabricate those. So we don't rely on products. It's just our knowledge, my knowledge, or the firm's knowledge. It's been hardwired to kind of really understand what's been built out there and how we can manipulate it to achieve a different outcome, right? And then infusing it with concept and meaning and tying it back into like artwork, which is, you mentioned, I think that's what kind of separates our buildings.
And are you bound to a certain area, or do you open to working in like all different types of places?
No, I'm open to anywhere.
Have you built outside of Ontario, or are you generally?
We designed a house in Jamaica.
Okay.
We just did the design work, and then the client they were making a decision on it. I don't know if they were building it or not.
Okay.
But we designed something specific for a site in Jamaica, which is off the coast there. I should follow up with them and see if they did what they did.
See?
Yeah, I know they were parking it for a little while, so
it was worth it today.
Yeah, it was worth it. It was good. But yeah, we're open to building wherever. We have a cottage up in the Muskokas we're building or designing right now. A lot of our projects are in kind of the Caledon, 905, Vaughan area. Again, more acreage, more property. Yeah. So a lot of.
And you've also developed in some ways. It sounds like a strong niche for your market.
Yeah, we actually have 2 projects down in the city off of in Hogs Hollow.
Okay. And
they're side by each, which is really kind of interesting. They're kind of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Oh, it's not the same owners?
No, different owners side by each, and One's kind of like a modern twist on a Victorian,
Yeah.
and the other one's like a full blown contemporary.
Okay. We're, I think, about to start one in Hogs Hollow as well. We're just waiting on permits.
Yeah. Those two are both under construction. Both clients are self-performing on the construction, so
Okay.
that's always fun.
I was gonna say that sounds fun.
Well, they're one is very competent
Yeah.
in the construction space, so, and the other one has very, very good connections and a good contractor on
Right.
there, so they're in good hands.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about your free time? Because I know that you do like to, when you get it, enjoy it. And so, what does that look like for you? Do you travel? What are some of your hobbies?
I have a few hobbies that I kind of rotate through them.
Okay.
So, depends on what season it is. Right now, I'm restoring a car in just cosmetic restorations, some
Okay.
small things that I'm doing. So that's going to be
what kind of car?
It's a 93 600 SL.
Oh, I know that car.
Yeah. I think it's a car that's been overlooked.
Yeah. It's funny because inside of the studio that we're in right now, in my backyard, I have a whole bunch of different cars up on a shelf. And I realized that the Mercedes is not there. The 600 SL is not there. I had that car.
Yeah.
In model form. Sorry.
The 600 SL. So that's the V12 one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of a unique car from that standpoint. So I just got some cosmetic things I'm doing. So I'm going to do the winter and do that.
Okay.
We do the normals, outdoor activities. We ski. I used to snowboard.
Yeah.
Can't do that anymore. Cycling's come to an end. So kind of do that indoors. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag of things.
Okay. And you were talking about how one of your boys is going into architecture.
One is in architecture, one is in computer science. So
Okay.
hopefully they figure out how to work together and maybe make the whole synergy between design and construction through technology a little more seamless.
Okay.
I think the industry's gotten very, very good, to be honest, with synergy between design and construction. I think it's gotten very, very good. But there's always room for improvement.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, people either simplify things or they make things very complicated. We are the variable.
Yes.
In many scenarios.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you've got two smart boys, sounds like, and they could figure that out, then they could be.
Yeah, I was gonna retire. Now I gotta stay in the business and build a firm for my son to kind of work.
Take over.
I don't know. He's never gonna. I don't know if he. I want him to be able to be in a position that should he want to take over.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna put that on him that he must.
Yeah.
That's not something I would want him to kind of need to do.
You say that it's interesting because I've interviewed quite a number of people who are either second up to fourth or fifth generation architects in their family, and growing up in families with architects as parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and beyond. There's a lot of pressure to get into the field, and it like you can feel it through them.
Yeah, I put no pressure on. I take him to the site just to kind of expose him to things. I think that's where you, at the end of the day, I talk a lot about the site because that's where the rubber hits the road when it comes to architecture, and just to kind of get his head around seeing how this all comes together, the process of it. And I think he's understanding that a lot. So I'm happy about that.
And when did your wife join the business?
She married me, so she joined the business.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, fair.
You're right. That's not like I hit it. It's
no, because you're saying that like only in the last couple of years. So did she start applying for different awards? But she's been involved a long time.
She's been involved, and then she just took on kind of more of the. I think she got involved on the promotional side of things because she saw we were doing great work and knew we had the talent to kind of grow that and to keep going. And I said, well, I don't know. I don't understand why, we don't get a lot of articles or anything, or no one's writing anything about us. She goes, because you don't talk to anybody. So I said, okay, so why don't you do it? And she does it. So she took over the Instagram account and she's taking over the website. She's doing all that promotion, but she has a marketing background. So she's kind of knowledgeable in this area. It's not my knowledge. I'm not trained in that.
Right.
So it's exciting. She proposes what she's going to do to me. And I think that's really, really great. And she's good at it. To be honest, she should be starting a marketing company that specializes in architects because she's really good at it.
I will tell you, there's only a very small handful of people.
Yeah, it's a niche market.
It is a niche market. But how many architects are registered in Ontario?
It's a trick question. I don't know. Many.
Thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands.
I don't know if it's that many.
It's literally in Ontario. I'd have to check, but I think it's well over 5,000.
It's over 5,000, I would think.
So there you go. I just said 1,000. I stopped at 5.
You did stop at 5. You did. You're right.
So there, think about that. And if the biggest practices that exist only have a couple hundred people working there, maybe, right? There's a lot of opportunity in small practices that need help on that. So it's interesting.
No, but there's a lot of good work being produced by small practices that don't have. I'm lucky. I consider myself lucky all the time. Like, I'm lucky. My wife is taking control of that and doing it for me.
Mm-hmm.
But other people don't have that, access to be able to kind of do some promotion. And that, not for anything. Maybe I would be in a different position if I was doing it a lot sooner. Like, maybe like my career still as an architect is still fairly young.
Yeah.
And, half of the work I've done was pre-architect, being licensed architect. Yeah. So it's kind of like my career is stalled a little bit, but I come with like huge knowledge, and she knows that, and she's able to leverage that in terms of her promotional strategies. And if I can give any advice to like a young firm starting out, is don't discount that. Make sure you have a strategy to kind of be very proactive with showcasing your work sooner than later.
Right. Yeah. I would think I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And the younger generation is a lot more prone to their knowledge of social media and all of that. But it is hard when you're trying to grow practice and dedicate time to that. You have to strategize your time. That goes back to what we were saying toward the beginning.
Yeah. Social media for me, and I guess this is why I've never done it in the past, is I've never kind of been promotional about myself, because it's hard to really talk about yourself. It's better when someone else is, talking about you. At least it's got more accreditation. You're coming from another authority is kind of saying, hey, when you're kind of like sitting out there pounding on your chest, look at me through Instagram or whatever it is, it doesn't have the same kind of
genuine
penetration in the market.
Yeah. And I also think that a lot of architects, and I've talked about this with many people so far, are largely introverted, and they want the work itself to be the extroverted element of who they are and how they
it goes back to our training. Yeah. It's back to our training. That's how we're trained, right?
Yeah.
Let the work speak.
Yeah.
Right. That's how I've acted personally throughout my career. Let the work speak. And to a certain degree it does, if you put in the effort.
Well, so then I think it's worth saying congratulations on doing this today, because this is definitely outside of the realm of things that you generally will do.
No, I appreciate the opportunity, that's for sure. And it's a unique forum to be able to talk candidly about, one's experience and what you can then bring to the table. Yeah, look, I said this to you when we were having lunch, and that is the whole concept for this platform was to be able to engage in conversations that I was having with a lot of people anyways, but to be able to talk about what life looked like as an entrepreneur, starting your business, evolving your business, and your evolution as well throughout it all. And to, in many ways, humanize it, both for others that are in the industry to be able to hear, but then also those that potentially are coming out of school to understand what a career path can look like. And then, if prospective clients hear it, great, they can get to know who you are. But really, it's about honoring what you have done for yourself and for your clients in your career,
to have some form of like legacy in talking about that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think young people coming out of school right now are faced with a lot of different challenges, and knowing where this career can go or what you can do and understanding that it isn't really limitations on that is important. It just requires them to buy in. They have to, again, I talk about buying in from the subs and the trades and everybody on site, and the client has to buy in to this idea. People coming out of school have to buy in too. They can't be shy. And you're gonna hit some walls and you're gonna stumble and you might fall, and you got to get back up, right, and keep going. Right.
Frank, I appreciate the time. Appreciate you making the way down here and over to the side.
It's not that far.
It's not.
Being in the 905, it's like 40 minutes to get down here.
Yeah,
it's nice.
It's 40 minutes for me to pretty much get in.
And I got no competition out there too. It's really nice.
Right.
Yeah.
I will say this to those listening. Obviously, you found the podcast either through Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube or other potential streaming platforms. Please make sure that you can give it a like. It helps with the exposure. It helps get other people listening to it. If you have a rating scale and it's up to 5, give it a 5. If there's a rating scale up to 10, give it a 10. Do what you can.
Only the max.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And to learn more about some of the projects that Frank has taken on over the years, you can head over to our Instagram account. That is the place where we showcase the work that people that are the guests that come on want to put out there for others to see. As well as some of the couple meaningful quotes that come as a result of this conversation. The whole podcast is powered by Walden Homes. We build, and for us, a key part of that is building strong relationships with people in this industry. So, again, Frank, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.